On the whip to move that the arrangement for this week's business be agreed to. Deputy Chairman.
Move.
You move. Not agreed. Okay. Deputy Mary Lou MacDonald.
I think it is absolutely extraordinary and scandalous the haste with which government wishes to move Darragh O'Brien's scheme, defective block scheme, through the Oireachtas. I know the time is short, we're coming towards the summer break, but Taoiseach, we should just reflect on the fact that the defective block style mica pyrite has literally devastated the lives of homeowners and their families in Donegal, in Mayo, in Clare, in Limerick, in Sligo, and at least 8 other counties. And it is fair to say that those homeowners, those families, those entire communities are in a state of shock by the scheme published by Minister Darragh O'Brien last week. They themselves, Concorla, have submitted 80 amendments to this legislation. And it is extraordinary that the government is closing down scrutiny on this scheme, is giving the deaf ear to the real concerns of these families. So just remember, this merits comment. The government, Concorla, are attempting to ram this matter through without proper scrutiny, without proper amendment, to produce for us another scheme that will fail. And I want to place on the record of the House that the time, the time allowed for consideration of this is wholly inadequate. People's homes, people's lives, and a lot of taxpayers' money is at stake here. And I won't be rushed, Concorla, in making that point in the most forcible way that I can on behalf of those families and those communities.
Concorla, there's been no explanation from government as they seek to rush through this legislation. No explanation as to why quarries are still operating in Ireland, producing substandard materials that are going into homes, leaving families, communities, and the entire state vulnerable from that. No explanation from government as to why the quarries who produce substandard materials haven't been gone after or pursued by government to recover those costs, and yet they're trying to force all of the discussion and all the over 100 amendments that are in on this into a discussion in less than 2 hours. That simply is not acceptable, doesn't allow us as a Dáil to do the job that we want to do and that we're elected to do. And on that basis, I'd ask the government to reconsider this, and we'd be opposing the order of business.
In relation to the rushing of bills through this week, it is ridiculous that we're here for months and we see this rush of legislation come through in the last week or two of the Dáil term, and particularly the Mica legislation, the fact that it's only given 2 hours for the discussion for amendments tomorrow. That's just not right. It's wrong. The Mica families have put so much effort into actually putting amendments through and trying to make this bill into a workable bill, and that should be taken on board, and it should be shown with some respect as well, I believe, for their plight. Thank you.
Thanks very much, deputies. We have a very busy schedule this week. The Dáil will sit until midnight tonight. It'll resume at 9 o'clock in the morning. It'll then sit until after 10 o'clock tomorrow night. We'll resume at 9 o'clock in the morning, and we'll then sit until after 10 o'clock on Thursday night. So it is a very, very busy schedule, and I do acknowledge that. But there is important legislation that we need to get done. That includes a cost of living measure, eliminating paediatric inpatient charges in our hospitals. It includes an important anti-crime measure, the Communications Retention of Data Amendment Bill. It includes an important special needs measure in relation to children who don't have places in school this September, and it includes important legislation on Mica. We want to get that scheme legislated before the recess so we can have it up and running in the autumn. There has been a full-day committee hearing on it already. There will be a Shannon debate as well as that. We're keen to get all this legislation through, and I think if there's one thing that we need to think about, and we need to think about this collectively, is when we come back in September, we need to spend more time on legislation. The Taoiseach has made this point before. I agree with him. We spend too much time on statements. too much time on show motions that have absolutely no legal effect. We don't need them. We need to spend much more time. We need to spend much more time. We need to spend much more time doing what parliaments are supposed to do, and that is spending more time in legislation. And I agree. And again.
Through the chair, thank you.
You always know when you're talking the truth and you're touching a raw nerve when the opposition tried to shout you down. We are a legislature. We're here to pass legislation. If you look at other parliaments around the world, they spend more time on legislation, doing what we're supposed to do, and less on motions and statements and showboating. And we should change our rules in September so we do more legislation and less of all the other stuff.
Thank you. Okay. Are the proposed arrangements agreed to? Not agreed. And I'm now putting the question. The question is that the proposed arrangements for this week's business are hereby agreed to. Not agreed. Na chakti thar hiv na keshta avrigi tha. Na chakti thar na gwina avrigi. Stoho gawil an kesht richa. The order of business. The question is that the proposed arrangements for the week's business be agreed to, and on that question a division has been challenged. Tellers Thaw, na chakti Jack Chambers agus Brendan Griffin, Neil na chakti Pádraig McLaughlin agus Matty McGrath. Thorough result. Paul Shaska Shea, yes 66. Neil Shaska, no 60. Tá an Keist Richa.
Entire opposition as the gap is only 6 votes and the entire opposition has voted against this outrage of 2 hours for such an important piece of legislation. Billions of taxpayers' money, 100 amendments on this crucial legislation. We are asking for a vote other than electronic means.
Entitled to the vote because the margin is 10 or less. Thank you. So there'll be a vote. Arrangements for the week's business be agreed to, and on that question a division has been challenged. Tellers Thaw na chakti Jack Chambers agus Brendan Griffin, Neil na chakti Pádraig McLaughlin agus Matty McGrath. The clerk will now take the division by roll call.
Minister James Brown. Minister Mary Butler.
Thorough result. Thaw Shaska Shea, yes 66. Neil Shaska Hay, no 61. Tá an Keist Richa. Bogam right.